There you go.
Welcome, Anastasia,
Thank you.
to the Bee Formless podcast. Here today, we're talking about the flow-driven CEO. How are you today?
Doing wonderful. Thank you. I'm actually extremely excited today because
Oh,
I'm looking forward to attend. And then I've been working on my talk that is going to become a book. So I'm like all
oh,
thrilled about
really?
what's coming out.
Tell me about your talk and this book, because from the research I've done on you, you are a renowned TED Talk keynote speaker, and it sounds like you've got some big talks coming up. So elaborate a little bit on that and tell us what's been happening in your world in that space.
I hope it's going to get big, but it's not guaranteed. Anyhow, I want to talk about cognitive foraging, radical cognitive foraging. And it's mainly exploring big systems like late capitalism and then looking into the tech feudalism and how we have became the commodity of our times, and a lot of us don't necessarily understand how the process works and what is a attention economy, and what is a dopamine hit as payment. And I want to propose a little bit of a different scheme to it and talk about different types of currencies. And what if I say love is currency, and what if I say kindness is currency, right?
I
So
love that.
exploring all of that in depth and details. And of course, I gave you just the overview, but when I talk, I usually talk to MBA students or students from, economics or entrepreneurship studies. So I go deep in there.
Yeah, and what is the most interesting piece for the students when you talk about this, given that, what age are they in terms of what sort of age bracket?
Oh, for example, HALT MBA, they're usually over 40, 45 because they are international students from all around the world. When I talk at Haas Berkeley, they're usually a little bit younger, but still, 30 to 45. And then there are undergraduates that are younger. So I'd say 30 to 50.
Yeah, right. Okay. And this
Mm-hmm.
is this is quite radical, right? Because like you say, we've been living in this commodity world for so long now, and it's almost like it feels ripe for radical disruption in terms of, that human design piece and, what it looks like going forward.
Right. But you see, what we're missing here, radical from Latin means radici. Radici means roots. So
Oh,
nothing else than actually going back to our own
oh, I
humanity,
love that.
holding on to who we are as humans and going deep into our roots. When we say these days, oh, I'm so rad, I'm so radical, I roll my eyes often.
Yeah.
Do even know what radical means.
Yeah.
We flipped the script so much and made this radical seem so out of this world, and it's nothing else than actually acknowledging and honoring our own roots, le radici. So that's what
How do you say that? Because you've got the beautiful, but I'm like Australian, so I have this Aussie, slang, and I'm going Lara DT. How do you pronounce it?
you gotta roll your radici. It's Radici. Radici. That means roots in Latin.
Wow,
I
okay.
Italy, so I gotta show off a little of my
I love it. I love it.
yeah, a little bit of my Italian. So that it's beautiful to see all these bright minds talking about, oh, what's next in AI, what's next in biotech.
Hmm.
And I love forward thinking, but also when we detach ourselves too much from what actually makes us human, we give our power away. So it's an exploration of big economical social systems, and from a macro perspective going into a micro and going into a nano perspective. So it's like 1 2 3 zoom in, and 1 2 3 zoom
Go back out
out.
again.
Macro, micro, nano. So nano is the personal way of approaching life or systematic being. And then micro is you, your family, your community, and your city. And then macro is national, international, and interplanetary. Right? So there are like those three big systems that we continuously live in, and they are very intertwined.
And so are you suggesting, or are you basically, this is just me thinking quite literally here, when you talked about the commoditization of the world and everything that's going on right now, do you see that as like almost a disconnected system when we talk about the macro, the micro to the nano? And the Radici piece is coming back to starting with the nano to then go back out again so that we're reconnecting or interconnecting the system. Is that how?
There is something in there. Yeah, you went intuitively somewhere, but it's not quiet. So what we experiencing now is the economy of attention, right?
Mhm.
We as humans are being a commodity.
Mhm.
We're not being paid for being a commodity because our taken away from us, but we're not reimbursed for it. Let's think about all the social media or all the devices we use, right? We pay Netflix, we pay Apple, we pay um, Aura Ring, and so on. We give our data away. We are the commodity.
Yeah.
It's exploitation, but they don't pay us back for our data, so we don't have sovereignty of our data.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's the exploitation of us as humans. That's why I say radical cognitive, because we need to think it through. We don't understand it just yet on a deeper level because it's so new to us
Yeah.
that we have the intuition
Yeah.
just yet. Like, oh, wait, I'm being exploited, right? When we work and we're not being paid, we're like, oh, I'm being exploited. We intuitively know it because our parents been working and so on,
Yeah.
right? That type of system is already ingrained in us. We understand. But this new system that is the attention economy, it's still new. We're still
Mm.
exploring it, right? So intuitively, we don't know it. That's why I call it radical, because we need to go back to our own being and be like, wait a minute, what is going on here, right? And
Yeah.
we're not questioning enough. I truly think we don't think anymore, unfortunately, for a lot of us.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And, we were having a conversation pre this, and, I love the whole notion, well, intuition and going with what sits within. And I think we don't have a chance to think enough because we are just so distracted by, like you call out, social media. We've got so much on the go, we don't
Yeah.
even get a chance just to sit and be present and hear those nudges and hear when your intuition is actually talking to you. It's almost like I feel like a lot of a lot of us have just blocked it out, and yet for me, I've actually mine's just being heightened and heightened because I had to strip myself bare in my journey, and now I'm really feeling the intuition. And when you talk about going back down into your roots, it's like, wow, like there's so much within us.
Yeah. But very often these days we confuse intuition with fear.
Oh, agree.
that's a
Agree.
that's a very tricky one, unfortunately.
It
But
is.
just exercising our own, what feels good in our body. Our body knows, so we can, follow that path, and we'll be fine. But still, a lot of us, think my intuition is so strong. I'm like, is it intuition or trauma? Is it fear or truly intuition? And
Mm.
then is that we give away our free will thinking that we don't have any more free will, and I'm like, I'll challenge people on that as well. But yeah, I hear you. I always say that rest is a birthright, and it became such a privilege.
Oh,
It became such a privilege that I am a single mom with two kids in Silicon Valley. It's a go, go, go. So on Wednesdays, I don't have the kids, and I sit and I call it a pause.
mm.
When I'm in my quiet space, I understand what a privilege it is. It
Yeah.
has become a privilege. It wasn't. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be, right? When you're tired, you should rest. But we really went somewhere with all of this progress and all of this right, you know, that we yeah. Uh,
Yeah, I agree. Rest should not be a privilege. It should just be rest should just be you are able to rest. You are able to pause. And I've had to learn a lot about that myself in the last few years where I've never ever just stopped and paused before, just pace, 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 100
mhm,
miles an hour.
yeah.
And now when I do rest, it's like my body, my mind, and my soul, it's all just it's like saying thank you. I'm so grateful.
Yes. And
It's
when we're 20, we're like, yay, let's go. I get it. Now in my 40s, I'm like, wait a minute.
yeah, the older
I,
we're getting. Yeah.
it just the body talks differently, which I'm very grateful for. And the qualities of my ideas and actions also are so much better. It improves with time. So I'm very grateful for my age, but it's definitely needing a different approach. It can't just be go, go, go.
Yeah. And so tell me about a bit about your book and what, obviously, yeah.
I want it to be a collaboration. It's about pluriverses. So basically taking the big systems that we have now, challenge them, and try to, maybe collaborate with AI and see where it can take us and what kind of utopian and dystopian futures we can envision. And then also just try our best to imagine and invent something that we didn't have just yet, because um in the probably what 50-60 years after the Second World War, we've been just reproducing systems, calling it innovation, but it's not really that. So again, the privilege of living in Silicon Valley, I'm always in the future already, the biotech we have here, the future of the medicine. And so it's like, oh, what can we do if we all collectively agree on something, right? So this communication, where can we go? Where can it take us? So yeah, it's interesting. We'll see where the book takes me. Also, it's more of a it's been coming to me, so I'm taking it all in, and it's gonna go through me. We'll see what I flesh out.
Yeah,
I'm curious,
okay.
but
What
the big
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, okay. And so, Anastasia, what do you see then as the biggest, with this new world and these new systems that you're looking at, what do you see as the biggest barriers and blocks? Like, everything you're talking about seems like it's exactly what we need. The world needs it. But
Yeah.
yet, I don't know, it's I guess what we were talking about before in terms of are we stuck? Is it that people are so wedded and so blinkered on that people in businesses, they know something's got to change. The
Yeah.
system is broken. It's not well, it's sick.
Yeah.
But yet it's just carrying on as it always has been. And I observe that myself, even just from a day-to-day perspective. And it's like we had COVID, that was fundamental in terms of changing everything. But yet we've come out of COVID and we're almost kind of people are almost wanting to go back to pre-COVID, but we're not in pre-COVID. We can't. And so my big question mark is when does this actually, when do we fully transition into this new world, into the systems in terms of like, is it a long term?
Well, you see, I fully believe that people change only when they have to, when it's so uncomfortable to
Mm,
be themselves or to stay in the same system that they have been, that they must change. So you see, the distribution of wealth is uncomfortable
mm,
for who hold on tight to it.
mm,
And for the majority of us, we somehow get by. And now more and more people are coming into the awareness of the fact that we are being exploited, right? We are this commodity that the tech feudalism is just squeezing out. That's why we don't have time to breathe. We don't have time to sleep. We don't have time to just relax or you know, get in touch with ourselves. So I think the awareness that the collective consciousness is going to grow bigger and bigger, and we'll see. I can't tell you a timing, but
No.
see change. I do see change coming, and it's you know, it's somehow scary because change is scary, and
Mm.
somehow because it's going to be something new that we didn't see before. And again, especially with AI, and especially with the political movements that are all around the world, not just here in America. You know, if you look in India, like if you look in so many other
Oh, you have to
countries,
look at Australia at the moment. We've got a big federal election coming up, and it's yeah,
that
it's divisive, you know. It's happening everywhere in the world.
exactly. And I think we're kind of driving ourselves into an implosion. You know, it's not serving well anyone, and then the massive change will have to happen.
Yeah.
But I don't know, hopefully soon, and hopefully as peaceful as possible. But again, change is disruptive.
Yeah,
So,
change is super disruptive. And when did you come across all of these systems and, you know, this whole way of, you know, the new world that how long have you been in this space and place for? Like, what's your journey to get here?
right. So I've been a social entrepreneur for about 20 years. And that's always been in my mind, you know, what are we doing? Are we extracting, or are we working on a regenerative system, right? Are we giving back
Mm.
while we're taking? Like, do we really need 10x of returns in VCs, and so on? So I've, I've, I've started startups, launched two and sold two. And, you know, I've been mentoring and advising for many years. I've worked with VCs. Now I'm raising my own fund. So I've been in the big systems as such for, yeah, for about at least like intensely for 15 years since I'm in Silicon Valley. And that kind of kept exposing me and pushing me towards thinking and overthinking, and just like brewing in these again big systems, and then how do I translate it into myself, my own actions, right? Because if I keep thinking only, then it becomes sterile. It stays only in
Mm.
my brain. I make it a practice, I share it with others, then something can happen, right? It
Mm.
becomes more
Yeah.
shared. Yeah. And then in the past year, it just hit me so hard. You know, I'm diagnosed dyslexic, even though I speak six languages. So
Oh, wow.
it's,
6 languages. That's amazing.
thank you, thank you. And I just started writing. You know, I started writing and writing, and then running it through AIs, and, you know, putting it all together. And I was like, okay. And then some of my friends were like, hey, Anastasia, why don't you come to talk to this and that, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay. So I just, you know, started having a good or positive, you know, outreach from other people that I didn't think. I wasn't doing it for others. I was doing mainly for myself to kind of organize my own thoughts.
Mm.
It's the summer brought me this urge of just
I call it yeah, I call it a soul. It's like your soul is calling you. It's kind of getting louder and louder, you know, that for me. And once it's like, it's almost like, I don't know about you, but you almost have feeling like it's screaming at you. And in terms of when coming into back to change for a second, I know
Yes.
when I was on my trajectory of change, it was like
Mhm.
I was so like the system was so outdated. The system I was in was so outdated that but I was staying in it probably because I was scared and that was that fear of change. And then this soul piece, I was just like louder and louder and louder, which then goes into listening to you and, you know, even from your book and how things come through to you. That's when you can access flow and get into the flow state.
100%. Yes, yes. If, you know, I say if I get out of my own way,
Mm.
things
Yeah.
happen. Beautifully, absolutely. And I also say, the kids came through me, not to me, right? And those are the biggest creations. And when we come to build or construct, we have to be very precise and just
Mm,
like it takes a certain amount of like pressure. And then when we just let it flow, birthing happens, right? We have to allow it to happen. Going back, circling back to change, right? We have to allow it to happen.
mm,
We
mm.
might want it, but not be aware of conscious of it, right? So it's like, ooh, how do I become a tool? How do I allow the flow to take me with it, right?
Mm.
You don't have to become the flow itself, but
Yeah.
being in the flow is just so beautiful and usually is the most productive or like births the biggest ideas or
Yeah.
humans and so
Absolutely.
on.
Absolutely. And you must see a lot of it in Silicon Valley in terms of, people in that flow state, or do you see a lot of it like in terms of,
I don't know. I don't know how to answer this question, honestly. I don't look through this lens necessarily. I mean, I do it on myself,
yeah.
but I know that a lot of creative processes are usually through flow. Like, you know, you get to exercise, but when you exercise, you're in the flow, right? So there is a certain way of being systemic
Mm,
about things, showing up and being persistent, but then the the creation comes through the flow. So you keep showing up,
yeah.
and here in Valley, a lot of people are very systemic and persistent. That I can guarantee.
Yeah.
But there is also this pairing with the flow, and teams come
Mm,
together and do my consulting work. We always have certain small rituals that we do before we go into,
mm,
okay, this get done, how are we going to do it? I don't know, let's figure it out. All right, so this figuring it out
mm.
comes through the flow for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I call it like solution finding. The problem's never the problem, right? It's always,
Yeah.
let's like find what that solution is. Okay, so I want to just have a quick conversation about this love piece. You mentioned it right up front, and I'm loving the your picture behind you with the beautiful rainbow and the love. Mine's with the person with their like 20 different fingers because that's how my brain has so many different ideas
Yes,
and then
yes.
getting it into a system. So, what would be your, I guess, your parting piece on love in terms of what you're doing with regards to the talks you're about to do and commoditized? And you mentioned moving from like a commoditized to like almost like, could it be a love economy or, various different forms? And I probably got that not completely right, but you did mention love up front.
So that is what if it's a provocative
Mm,
thought,
mm,
right? Not necessarily something that I can tell you step by step how it's going
no.
to work. Provocative thought was, what if I say that love is currency? Or what if I say that hugs are currency, or care, or kindness? And to me, love is definitely an active choice. I choose to love one person or the other. And it, of course, it's also a feeling, but feelings are fleeting, right? Feelings don't define us. They come and go, they go
Mm,
through us, and what we choose to do is what makes us who we are. And I think it's a verb, it's a practice,
mm,
right? So that's why I'm a big believer in love. I love humanity, love life, but it's definitely very well thought through way of showing up. So
mm,
to excites me when I talk about love is, staying humble and doing my practices, or like chop wood, carry water, but also being very proud and big and loud about my own humanity, right? Which I always celebrate and encourage others to do and be in.
I love that. And I feel like, we don't love ourselves enough half the time. We're so hard on ourselves, right? And
Ah, yes.
back to even, that whole we don't think enough. Like there's a whole thing around thinking, isn't there? You can get stuck staring at something, thinking, trying to rack your brain, but that's not the thinking we're talking about here.
Yeah.
But the same goes with love. I think we can be so hard on ourselves and hard on the system, and yet Mother Nature, everything, it's all encompassing around love. Love is around, kindness, like you say, that whole empathy piece. Like we can do better business when we're doing it with love. Like there's just so much
Right.
richness there.
If you think about the biggest system in the world is mycelium. So myceliums are the base, the roots of fungi, right? So the biggest system as such is a natural system. And
Mm.
if we look into it, it has the same pattern. So basically the internet or a lot of our open sources function the same way. It's the sharing. So what if I say, being generous is about how much you can share, or being rich or successful is not about how much you have in your bank account, but how much generosity can spread, right? So we also get this success or idea is that, oh, I have to be financially sorry, empowered or powerful. And power is actually, if we think about it, responsibility, right? This is how I hold my power. I know how to respond to certain ways of being, or like how I interact. And like when I hear people, oh, this person is so successful, and they never smile, I'm like, ooh, I really don't want their success. They're so rigid, and I'm like, ooh, all right. So talking about love or success, I think we really need to feel it through us, and
Yeah.
then
Mm.
align our thoughts with our feelings and be in it, be like embody it,
Yeah,
because
I love that. Embody it. I love
yeah,
that so much.
if we continuously disconnect from the nature and put ourselves above it, it's never going to work, because
No,
we are part of the nature, right? So by destructing it, we're like massively self-sabotaging. Talking about
totally.
self,
Totally.
it's not going to
Okay.
work.
I love that. I love that. Okay, one final word from you. Picture this, you're doing your keynote as talk. What is the last thing you would say to the HAAS students? What would be the last thing you say in your keynote?
Well, I actually have a practice. It's a neuroscience at work. I always ask them to tap and say, I am powerful.
I am powerful.
I create positive impact.
I create positive impact.
How to invent new worlds.
How to invent new worlds.
Yes,
Oh,
I
I
know
love
how.
that.
Yes, those are the three things I always ask everybody to do with me, and we say it at the end. Yes.
I've got really good vibes from you today to take on the rest of my day. Where can
Beautiful.
we find out more about you, your keynote talks, as well as your, obviously you're working through your book, but where can we find more about you?
Oh, it's my website, my name and surname, Anastasia.
Okay,
That
share that.
and then LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there as well. So yeah,
Amazing. Well,
of course.
thank you so much, Anastasia, and I loved this. So thank you.
Thank you. Have a lovely day.
You
Bye bye.
too.